Good evening, morning, afternoon, whatever applies to you, and welcome back to yet another EuroLeague. I am joined, as always, by Mr. Keire and Mr. Nymaera to obviously talk all things Week 1 LEC. Now, before, of course, we get into any of that, it is back, my patented Would You Rather. We couldn't go 2 weeks without it. That would just be a crime beyond imagination. So, Nymaera, the
Hello.
question is, would you rather... I am aware, by the way, that once you really get 100 deep into these would you rather's, a lot of them do just become sort of value
Rehash?
propositions of money versus not money. So it
Well,
is
I don't
what it
know. That's
is.
why you got to
Tells
bring
you a
Uh,
more
lot about
questions.
society there.
Yeah. No, I really feel like we should be revisiting, the shitting room in the castle.
True.
Bring back some of the
Bro, if
classics.
you build it, I'll come. You know what I mean? I've got to get given the correct questions. I can only work so hard.
Yeah, there's only so many like mansions without toilets at facilities.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
true what they say. Your true genius is only
Oh
tap
God.
inable within like your early 20s, because after then you just lose all your sort of creative ambition, let's say, and you just settle into this monotonous cycle of would you rather have £1 million or blah, blah, blah. Who knows? Anyway, Nymaera, would you rather have a substantial but not exorbitant, Jesus Christ, uh,
Exorbitant.
exorbitant passive income per month? So I guess whatever you would, perceive as not being life changing, but being very helpful, just a passive income, as the crypto bros call it, per month, helping you out. Or would you rather that your body passively stays in excellent health, regardless of your eating slash exercise habits? So either your body is like self maintaining, let's say, without you having to really address it. You can eat what you want or whatever. Your body is just still a temple. However you perceive that temple to be in your mind, it's doing that passively. Or you're getting a substantial amount of passive income, which is, let's say, it's enough money that relieves you from stress. It's comfort money. You are in a comfortable position because of
You
this
still have
passive
to
income.
work.
Well, that would be up to you. You can't live like a lavish, ludicrously extravagant
Yeah,
lifestyle
but
on
I
this
could live in
money,
the UK
but you
without
could,
having to
yeah,
work.
you could live without having to work. It's a comfortable income. You're getting a comfortable
Mm.
passive income, or your body is self-regulating essentially. Whatever your idea of what that would look like.
I mean, I have a ton of stress from money, so that would very much help. It would do, but I think like the health thing, the body maintenance, whatever, that wouldn't matter to me now, but it would matter in 10, 15 years, especially if I go off the lifestyle I have right now, which is so overwhelmed by streaming, podcasting, and just work in general, which is very sedentary, that it would very, very much help in a while. Because honestly, the last 10 years of my life have been very inactive physically anyway, because it's just been dominated by esports and league, and I just haven't been organized enough, much in the way that many adult lives become. You just looking after yourself kind of falls by the back burner. Like that would be incredible. It would be.
You know
I'm
what
also
is quite
lucky to
funny,
yeah.
by the way, is how sort of a generation prior to ours, I'd probably say, although there's like a little bit of overlap, the sort of fear of the sedentary lifestyle was always directly linked to like office work. It's like, oh, if
Mm.
you work sort of a 9 to 5, you're at your desk all the time, make sure you. I remember them telling us in school, like, if you use a computer at your workplace for a long time, make sure you stand up every 45 minutes and walk around, blah, blah, blah. And now it's like, the digital age has moved along so much that most people's free time is also just sedentary.
Just
So it's
yeah.
like times two. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so the health thing, I probably wouldn't see as much benefit from that now. Um, but in 10 years' time, I'd be loving that. Once you start getting into like, 10, 15, 20 years later, once you're actually hitting like middle age and stuff, effectively, bad habits which you've built by that point, and if you haven't gotten ahead of like your physical needs and whatever, that's when it really comes back to bite you. And if this is a lifelong thing, which I presume it is,
Yeah.
this is like ad infinitum, the health thing would eventually, especially into your old age, be invaluable. That would by far outweigh that. However, I'm also at a point now where just in my own life, I mean, rent is a big issue right now. I am, Sam and I are having to figure stuff out without broadcast work because that's not something which we managed to get for this season.
Thanks,
And
Obama. and Riot.
Yeah, so then it's like, okay, you know, we have to figure out rent through streaming and content somehow or other, which is not easy to make money off of at all compared to something which is a, you know, a contract job in some way. And it probably is the most major stress in my life. It is. Money is the most major stress in my life. So for me personally, that would be huge. I just think that, you know, taking the bigger picture, these sorts of moments will inevitably pass to some degree, whereas your health is, well, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything, was the adage,
Well, a
right?
man, you know, a healthy man with 99 problems versus, you know, the sick man only has one problem, right? That's always the
Yeah,
analogy they
like
use.
you take a lot for granted if you're healthy up until you're not, basically. So for me, even with probably money being the biggest stress on my life right now, I probably would lean towards health even then.
Yeah, I mean, they always used to whip out this stat. I don't know how true or how scalable with inflation or whatever it is now. But they always used to say that the average American had less than
Tell me the stat,
500.
Rich. I'll tell you if it's true or not.
All right.
Don't,
Well, they
don't
used to
worry,
say
yeah.
that most American or the average American had less than $500 in their bank account, and the purpose of
That
this
stat's
stat.
not real.
Okay, well, the purpose of this stat was primarily to indicate that almost every, or not almost everyone, but the
One
average
accident away from being
person
bankrupt.
that was living paycheck to paycheck was essentially that there's no
Yeah, no, the
ability to
percentage
save
of
money.
paycheck to paycheck is still very high, but I'm just
Yes.
not sure exactly what that translates to in real world terms.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess like the crux of it also is if you've got lots of money, presumably you have more free time because again, it's passive income, right? So you have more free time to look after your health. But similarly, if you don't have to put any effort into your own health, then you would have more time to pursue business ventures or whatever it is that you're doing to try and accrue greater wealth. So there's also that balancing act in a sense as well. But what are you thinking, Keire? What would you
Just a
take?
little note on that stat, right? By the way, could you get the Fed? The Fed actually keeps like median data, not mean, because mean's bullshit, but median data. You go look it up in America. It's something like $5,000, $6,000. That stat, the reason it comes from it is a famous thing about California, by the way, right? Okay, and in California, that stat came around because of the minimum wage law, and they were arguing for it because at a point in time in California specifically, majority of people were accident away from being bankrupt. If anyone's interested in it, if you had a medical accident, you broke an arm, you broke a leg, and then you couldn't work, then you were literally bankrupt because
Yeah.
you did literally not didn't have enough savings in your bank account, and that's like an old like internet thing that was true of a period, and then it kind of just got like carried through from anyone. I pick health, by the way. You know, wealth and health. You know what I mean? You're not got no any wealth if you haven't got your health. Like, you know what I mean? Like, see like the body thing. See if I'm gonna get like an early form of cancer in like my 30s. Rich, does that like deal with that? Does it just like get rid of that?
I would say that because I mean, getting a bit deeper now, but you can't. There are lots of metrics that you can yourself create that will massively reduce the chances of you getting cancer. For example, having a very high VO2 max directly correlates with your chances of getting cancer, and obviously avoiding carcinogenic foods and so on is gonna like basically nothing can guarantee that you can't get cancer. That is my point, but obviously, if you are super health conscious, you can massively
Wait,
reduce
did you
the
say
chances of getting
having a
cancer.
really high VO2 max increases your chance of cancer?
No, decreases
Oh, decreases.
astronomically.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
like
okay.
by a lot. It's in fact it's the single number one indicator of the likelihood of someone getting cancer versus not getting cancer.
Really, I thought it'd be environment by like miles.
No, no. Well, the thing is that what you have to keep in mind is these stats can be misleading because having a very high VO2 max probably means you're also doing a lot of other things which are in line.
Yeah,
with
like second
being
and
health
third order
conscious.
effects.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
like someone who has an incredibly high VO2 max probably cycles a lot, and they're probably eating loads of like high fiber foods and a balanced diet and whatever to also go along with that lifestyle. So it's hard to isolate stats in terms of cause. But yeah, having basically those two are in line. And as I said, like you can't guarantee no one, I believe, without having their fucking helix analyzed or something by technology we don't even have, can guarantee getting cancer or not. Part of it's hereditary, part of it is just dormant cells of sort of inevitability. Like we don't even fully understand cancer at this point, but no, basically it doesn't guarantee you won't, but it will highly reduce the chances of you getting it.
Okay, I'll highly reduce that. Okay, I'll take the health still. Still taking the health.
See, I'm surprised Kira picks the health, Nymaera,
Why?
because he can't even taste food. So surely for you, it'd be way easier to just eat a really healthy diet and not even give a toss as part
No,
of
my
it.
taste will eventually come back. Like my taste isn't a neurological
Who are you,
issue. It's a
Wolverine? How are you fixing that then?
no. It does regenerate. Like your taste does regenerate. I just damaged it really badly. I think isn't a neurological like symptom of like something of like when if you fall and hit your head or you have like a brain tumor or
So it's
something.
not like
Mine's
nerves where the nerves is like it's not like severed
no.
or okay.
Because I can still
Okay.
taste, like I can still taste like chilies, mustard, like really tart vinaigrettes. Like it's people who can't taste any of that stuff. I've got a neurological problem.
Right.
Mine's is just
Okay.
damaged to the point of where like it's pointless. Like someone hands me a sandwich, it's like there's no pointless asking me how the sandwich. It tastes like every other sandwich. It's just it is of sandwich complexion. You know what I mean? Grapes literally just taste like every other fruit that is sugary. You know what I mean? Grapes, apart from texture, they all just like taste the same.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I'd take health, 100% health, easy health.
Fair enough. I'm gonna break
Passive
the mold.
income's overrated.
I'll take the money. I'll just take the money, and
Jesus
I'll
Christ.
put more time. I will myself tackle the health and fitness side of it and use the more
The
money
more
and extra
interesting
time.
one would have been being able to like have like would you choose like health for yourself or your family? That'd be a more interesting one. Or
Oh,
like
that's so
yeah.
easy. Myself.
Very based. I
Okay,
don't,
question over. Okay,
Well, no.
fine, move on.
Right, next,
mean,
guys. Come on, guys. Let's
but
get
yeah,
through a couple of these.
it
I'm on a
depends.
roll. Right, next.
It depends, you know. Are we talking direct family, extended? Because my direct family
It doesn't
actually
matter how many people you add
all,
onto this list, right?
but they're all very health conscious anyway, so it's like it wouldn't make
Okay.
much difference. So, I don't know. I might be
World
with
or
Keira. I might be with Keira on this one. I can't lie.
World Arcadia. I'm sorry, World.
Anyway, moving swiftly on to people who desperately do need our. Actually, no. Before we talk about Lost Ratones, I just want to get your initial thoughts and feelings on the game so far. Obviously, it's only 1 week. I'm not talking about the quality of the games or whatever. Just given the changes that have been brought in that we spoke about last week, and
I think
also,
it's the same thing.
yeah. I guess to a certain extent the format as well. Obviously, we're back to like BO1 quickfire. There's now 12 teams. Like, are you guys enjoying the games? What has your experience, Nymaera, been of week 1?
Best of ones aren't real League of Legends.
There is the quote.
Best of one,
Thank you.
and the biggest thing is like, folks, I already in just the 1 week, I've watched so much League. So I've watched all of LPL, all of LCK, and all of LEC, and I'm just sat there like getting to the end of an LEC game, and I'm like, well, I'm not learning shit. These teams aren't gonna have a chance to adjust on the fly, play towards series, play into fearless or anything like that. Best of ones are just not real. They're just not real to me. If it gets to the point where fucking, what was the game with Lost Ratones versus KC, not KCB but KC, where Yike's Wukong clone took the Scuttle Crab, meaning that he didn't get the XP for it. Like, if shit like that can ruin a best of one, it just feels so unsatisfying. I mean, I did watch into bits of Caedrel's stream as well to see how he was reacting to his team and whatever. And at the end of the game, he was like, "Damn, I wish I could have another game and stuff like that." He was ranting about best of ones a little bit. A little bit that would have been just playing into the drama of it and the pantomime and whatever. But part of it did just get me thinking. Just nothing is conclusive from best of ones. Not truly. You can get some things right, but it doesn't feel conclusive at all. So that was probably my biggest takeaway. Just like, I wish I could see teams adjust on the fly and see more games from them. I understand why they have to do this for the format with the amount of teams. I do understand that. It just feels kind of crap. I just don't like best of ones.
Yeah.
That's the
There
biggest
were
takeaway.
quite a few games as well this week where a team sort of threw kind of ish, and but you're kind of feeling like, oh, they've screwed that one up.
What,
But
GX
if they
shifters?
well, yeah, but you're like, oh, if there was more time, like if the series went further, they'd probably just make the adjustment and win. The G2 versus who did they play in their second game? Where they had it won and they're pushing like Nexus
Giant
Towers.
X.
Oh,
yeah,
Giant X,
Giant
yeah,
X.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you just are like, well, whatever, go next. Like, and there are a couple more as well where I mean, even one of Lost Ratones game, was it their second game as well? They had a
No, third game where
Was
they're
it the
up
third
against
game?
KC.
yeah.
You
felt
Versus
like
is fed.
yeah, they could probably win it. And I mean, I'm not saying they'd have won the series, but you take the point. It's like a lot of these games ended in a manner where you're like, damn, I want to see if people would just iron this shit out and fix it, especially because it's week 1 as well, so mistakes are going to be more prevalent. But yeah, Keira, what are your thoughts?
So following Nymaera's point, BO1s aren't really legends. I think the opening draft priorities of the LEC are really,
Yeah.
really poor. I think drafting's really, really poor in the LEC. Like, super poor. Like, the worst of all the major regions. Like, very, very, very. I can't even express how poor. And then obviously that's exasperated by the fact that you don't even get to see what drafts 2 and 3 look like because we're not actually really doing Fearless because PO1 Fearless is fake. But you know, I have enjoyed the games being back. It has been really, really fun. I've enjoyed somewhat the parity of like the league. I don't think the standards exceptionally high, but I think a lot of the teams being round about the same level in each other is making it somewhat entertaining. You know, there's like blowouts, like even the blowouts are like all right to be watching. Um, you know, it's always fun. We're probably going to cover it. You know, some of the teams that we thought were going to do really poorly doing a lot better, which is really, really cool. Other thing is I think this was one of the most brutal opening weeks for new starts, like people who are new to the LEC. They got most of them apart from one team basically got blasted. Like most like the new like people got their absolute like the people who are new. That was they talk about the welcome to the NFL moment,
Yeah.
Rich. That this was a 3 week of welcome to the LEC moments, which is hilarious because there's been plenty of times where like new players who are way worse than these players have joined and they've got along just fine. Don't know what it is. This batch of like players just kind of got like their shit pushed in, and we'll cover them as like came
Well,
along.
let's talk about it now. Let's start with Los Ratones, who obviously had their welcome to the LEC moment, starting 0-3. Interestingly, no one went 3-0 this week. So to your point, a bit more parity than maybe people were expecting. A team would have a good win one game and then a bad loss another game. Looking at you, Vitality, and many other teams, indeed. Worryingly, I think for Los Ratones is they also lost to KCB, who I guess in theory are meant to be the team that well, at least we're better than them, kind of thing. So yeah, one of their best potential chances at a win gone there. There are some obvious things to talk about here, most of which I think we mentioned / predicted could be issues on the show. Velia, Bows didn't look particularly wonderful in a couple of these games, but plenty of other issues to get into. But Keire, why are they 0-3? What's going on with Los Ratones? How do you look at this team at the moment?
I think. Well, let's just talk. I'll just quickly run through them. So Baus, pure identity, like not even playing like the crit Vi. I think it's pointless having players like Baus in the team if you're not actually going to let them bounce, right? And I genuinely think it's like pointless. I think if you have these like game warping like players are on the team, you like obviously Crownie might be the best like player. Crownie's got his own problems on the team, which we'll come to. Crownie might be the best player. I still think you play like a style that allows Baus to play because he's probably the least inflexible and he's probably the one in terms of being a pro player, the one that doesn't need to be there in terms of he's giving up his like streaming time. And so like it's a two-way relationship, but I think there's like a version of Baus that you could probably make work and make like a very interesting team. And I think you've seen a lot of that in Los Ratones in the previous season. I don't think that's really translated. I think Velja should just be playing carries. This guy's engaged sense is really, really poor. It's not easy. I don't envy like his job. But Avelia should just be playing like carries. He should just
Well,
be
okay.
on your.
Question for that then, because yeah, because like I somewhat understand that. Who do you want playing engage for Lost Returns, if not Value?
Well,
Nemesis, Crownie, or Baus.
do you want your mid laner being your primary engage tool? That seems
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, I don't give a fuck. If my jungler is so deficient that the engage that he does loses me the game, he cannot be on engage. I must take it off of him and put it onto someone else.
I
I will.
understand, and
I will.
obviously Reckless is not really an engaged player.
And Reckless isn't an engaged player either, so I'm going to put it onto Crownie. I'm going to have him play Varus. Varus is high ban. I'm going to play Jin. I'm going to play Ashe. I'm going to put my engage and my pick somewhere else. I'm going to try and have it mid lane. I'm going to have Nemesis plays like Nemesis is supposed to have this big, massive like champion pool, right? You can play like engage in like mid lane, right? Okay. And like you know what I mean. You can also have both play like Gragas. I know it's not like the most standard form of like Gragas, but you know what I mean. Like you can have it be in like other places. You
But
know what I mean.
very quickly, just not exactly to push back, but to
That's
get
fine.
specific here, we saw Nemesis in what was a fairly close contested game, at least for a while. I think it was 5-0 on Oriana. So, you know, he's playing engage, but he's not actually winning his
But he's
team
not
the
really
game.
he's not playing engage. Like Oriana's not really an engage champion. Like Shockwave. You think Oriana's an engage champ?
Well, he can. The thing is, if he's not directly engaging, he can just at least put his E on someone else and then engage.
Yeah, but
like,
someone else is still pressing the go button.
But someone else still has to deliver the ball.
Yeah, but if what I mean by that is like, let's say we're in a team, heaven forbid, we're all playing the game, right? And I fancy myself as a bit of a shot caller. If I'm Oriana and I'm putting the ball on someone who's going in, 80% of that engage is on me, really. I'm still picking the window. I'm telling you when to go.
It's the other way.
By the way, can I just say, when Yike fucked it up at Worlds, Rich, you blamed Yike, not Caps.
Listen. Nocturne Oriana is a different ball game. There's so many facets. You're turning the lights off. You know, there's a speed up steroid. Like, there's a lot going on, Keire. There's a lot going on. Was there a Nocturne in this game? No. Checkmate.
Right.
Checkmate. Anyway.
Checkmate.
No, but unironically, I do think... by the way, obviously I'm memeing. I do actually think it is a little bit different when you're playing Nocturne because you are talking about, like, a super fucking... Like, it's just such a unique champion.
Okay, that was the best game, and Bouse was on Vi.
Put the ball on Vi. Tell Vi to go in.
He was in control of the engage with Nemesis.
Yeah,
so there you
sure.
go. That's even more prudent to my point. Velia's actually on Mundo, which isn't an engaged champion.
Yeah.
It's more of a health tank carry, sits in a space, and you can't occupy that space. So there's my diagnosis of Los Ratones. A little bit of an identity crisis, shared poor drafting. Think they need to get their... If you want to win games, get your people onto stuff that your least flexible people, get them onto their specialities, and your more flexible people, get them onto stuff they're less comfortable with, but they can facilitate those people playing that style. There you go.
What do you think, Nymaera?
I think there's a huge disconnect in the team. Just huge disconnect. In fact, I was doing Power Spike earlier and I was speaking to Yamato, obviously coach of the team, and I brought this up to him, being like, yo, why is no one proactive on this team? Or rather, like, why is no one proactive as a unit? The way it looked to me is that you had Velia going for these massively overambitious jungle paths. You know, versus Fnatic, he was taking one camp, invading, trying to contest for like red buff, then obviously didn't have smite for that, so it was like a no smite to no smite auto attack thing, and he ended up losing it. While he's doing that, it's not like his lanes are coming to help him. So it's not like bot lane has sent Braum to go roam over. By the way, that's exactly what Braum is meant to do, by the way. So Reckless just stayed in lane, and I understand that you can't exactly leave a Corki early levels versus the or Alistair. They can die. You need to be careful about how you leave lane, or have like uncontested shove and make sure you push in at the right time. The connective tissue is not there, not for the top level. So basically what it boils down to is, does anyone have enough individual agency to make plays without the subsequent setup having to be there? So planning 2 waves in advance, saying, okay, we're going to be winning the level 1 push in bot lane, which means that we can get to, you know, the standard jungle time, you're at the end of your clear and we can evade into bot side. Typically that's a huge meta thing right now. If you win the early levels of bot lane, you go towards that. And if you don't win that, then you path differently, you path more safely as a jungle. And then what you do is you try and play for the bounce back. So you collect the wave at turret after losing the early wave, you keep your HP, and then you slow push it back out if you can do, and then you go for a dive on the other side if that's possible too. But you have to know those timings. And I don't think Lost Ratones have that understanding. I think when they get that understanding is later into the game, where everyone gets enough wave clear to instantly delete a wave and then move. And then you have something like Kled ult, Ryze ult, Bouse and high mobility champion like Volibear or Gragas to just zoom around the map. And I think that was helped a lot in the third game, which looked better against KC, because they had something like the Bard, which can use the portal to go across the map and be a little bit more proactive, because Reckless was really, really struggling to make something like that happen. So that's like the macro disconnect. But I thought in the first game they played, there's one play. In fact, can we bring up a clip? I've got a clip ready. Do that. Yeah, we're bringing this back, folks. We've got a clip. So this is a fight which happened in the first game versus Fnatic, where it's initially, you see there's kind of a group coming around. You've got like lane pushing in, shove and roam from the wasn't call it from the Kled, although both top laners have teleport anyway. So you kind of expect a fight to come in. Well, maybe you do, but at least you're roaming for the potential of it. So Velia gets jumped on, Reckless jumps forwards, and then this play starts to happen. Then the key moment happens in just a second. So teleports are channeling. Worth noting as well, by the way, that Ryze doesn't have ult, does have Ghost, I suppose, to get to it. I don't think he's fully cut off from River, but there is a Talia wall, which makes things a bit interesting. And then what happens is, I think LR are super split on what they want to do. I don't know who's calling this, but then basically what you'll see in a second is Reckless jumping out as Velia jumps in, and Velia just completely fucks the engage. But also, what is the combined call here? Reckless hasn't even taken that much damage. He does not need to flash there. Plus, he's a Braum. Realistically, you don't need to anyway. So he flashes out, Velia goes in, gets hit by the Talia rocks, and just gets absolutely fucked. He just dies immediately. But one thing which I just immediately notice here is that, Nemesis hasn't popped Ghost. Reckless hasn't used the whole breadth of his HP bar. Velia's gone in as Reckless has used both summoners to go out of the play. It just feels like the whole team doesn't really know what they want from this situation. And it just allows Fnatic to have a very easy team fight. Because they basically have, if we go back into the fight before this, right? As they engage, their two damaging members are in position. They have two damaging members in position. Only Cranny on the other side is there is someone on the other part of it. Fnatic are way more prepared for this fight and they're willing to take it. Whereas the Rats, they're just not in position to... or rather, like, they are somewhat in position to fight. And I think Braum can slow down the fight enough for Nemesis and Baus to get into the play. Instead, I don't think Reckless and Velia are on the same page. I don't think the team knows what they want from this, and they end up losing 3 kills. And this is really the play which sets the game behind, because they were 500 gold ahead, two dragons to 1, that's fine. And after that, they end up losing a bunch of pressure across the map and going basically a 2k gold swing from that. Anyway,
this to me makes no sense as well, because even if you say, okay, the comms are bad or something like this, like if I'm J4 here, I physically see my Braum flash out of the fight. Why on earth would I think that's a signal to go in? And it's not like he's pressing one button.
I'll tell you what, I'll slow this down, right? So if we go back to the clip, I'm not sure if you got it back up, but if you you watch this, when does he cast his Q? So he's dropped the E. When does he do it? Because it'll be in a second. I've slowed it right the way down. So right here, Q is cast at the same time that flashes. So by the time he has pressed that Q, he's going in that direction effectively. Reckless has flashed out. And I just can't help but notice that Reckless has his shield up. He's full HP. You don't need to flash there. It's your job as the Braum to take the damage.
Actually, no, that's interesting. I thought he EQ'd afterwards, but yeah, it's basically on the same frame. So Reckless isn't just flashing. He's probably flashing without comming that he's flashing out. Like, I don't know.
The whole team doesn't know whether they want to fight or not, and it's kind of like a split call.
Yeah, I don't know. This is, to me, this is like, however way you spin it, as you said, they're not on the same page, but I also don't see a reason why they wouldn't be on the same page here. It's like, I don't know. Obviously, we don't know what the comms are. We haven't heard them, so there's not much point like assigning blame game here, I guess. But yeah, to me, this is crazy. This is crazy though. This is like.
Go on, Keire. What's your diagnosis?
For our audio listeners,
if you're moving forward, okay, here's the thing, right? There are people who talk less and stuff like that, right? Okay. I've not got the clip actually, Nymaera. I just noticed, but just for the link. 1 second, I need to go get it. I just closed it. But no, I know. I just closed it by accident.
By the way, for those of you who aren't audio listening, this was a clip around 21 minutes between Fnatic LR.
Assigning complete blame is a bit harsh, right? But the thing is the backline, like your carries, right, need to be like calming their intent, okay, right? And then if supports, right, are doing things like against like what that intention is, okay, then they're just completely responsible for it. You know what I mean? So like, for example, if you're like you're calling for like a slow roll, slow play it slow, right, and then they engage into you and you're calling for like a kite back, and then you're like your Lulu just like what's his name? Hellsang flashes into the middle enemy team, ults themselves and just kills himself, right? Okay. There isn't a version of that where like, oh well, I said my intentions, so actually you guys not like knowing I'm going to flash, it's like your fault. You know what I mean? Like that's the type of thing. So when I look at this like type of like play here, either Reckless like isn't like communicating like his intention of like coming forward and like doing this, or the backline isn't like communicating for him, so he's not got, you know what I mean? He's having to just trying to like mind read like the backline. It's very unlikely that it's anything to do with like the engage package. Like, you know what I mean, in terms of that sense. So it's some like mixture of that. Having a look at what's just happened, I would probably guess this is more just Reckless's fault, because if they look at the resource expenditure, is that a good use of resource expenditure at this point in the game?
I will just play a tiny bit of devil's advocate, which is if you
On you go.
if you pause it just before Velia actually engages. Obviously, we see the Talia rubble is down already as well.
It
It's
literally
like,
comes out in the same frame pretty
Yeah,
much
yeah,
as
yeah,
well,
yeah.
which makes it look so much worse because
I
like
mean, the
it's not
ability is up, not the ability is
yeah,
cast.
yeah, yeah.
But
Maybe.
I think if you just keep it paused there, can they ever win this
Yep.
fight? Like with J4 going in, I think they can never ever win this fight. Even if they're all on the same page and they just all decide to yeet this fight, I think they just auto lose anyway.
So my logic would be effectively this is kind of like a comedy of errors. It is because as you can see, the Q is in motion. The first rocks have just spawned, so he's basically Velia has pressed Q at the same time that his tank support, who's meant to be the front line, has flashed out of the play, and the enemy anti-dash champion has just put down his fuck you button. So if he thought he could win the skill check and say, okay, I can EQ and get to a decent distance through here, maybe get a knock up onto the front line, then what you can do is you can EQ flash onto upset if you get in range, stopping your dash and making sure that Talia rocks don't get you, and then you can ult after. So I think if Reckless had stayed in the front line, in a somewhat, because he was around here, if he stays in here, and he ends up being able to flash forwards even to get like a Q onto upset or something like that, or even onto Vladdy. And then also Velia gets the EQ flash through the front line and then can get the flash knock up and then into the dunk onto one of the backliners. I think it's playable. I don't think it is necessarily a win.
I don't think that's winning.
Is...
I don't think that's winning. I don't think that's winning.
But I think there is at least an option where maybe the front line dies and then maybe Ryze goes into the play, particularly if you force flash off of one of the carries, then a ghosting Ryze with flash probably catches them, and it's at least competitive because you've got Baust on the other angle as well.
I just
because
don't like the Braum flash at all. It's just really bad.
Look, okay, there are a few things, right? The Braum flash is pretty fucking bad. The EQ the EQ coming through from the Jarvan is also bad, but that one is more like just a tragedy because it happens as the Braum flashes out, and he just gets skill checked by a Talia who hits E as part of the skill. Because I'd imagine Vladdy is partly looking at this going like, I'm going to put down the rocks in case they dash. You know, that's often what you do. You hold onto it and you put it into the choke point. Like Vladdy plays as well, just kind of effectively bait in the engage. But it just feels so much worse because then it's literally frame later, it just goes like this.
No, but this is why, by the way, I actually think stuff like this is worth watching. Because like when I watched this in real time, I was like, Velia's just inting. But when you actually like break it down, as Nymaera said, like because of the nature of Jarvan EQ as well, it looks like he does it after he has all the info, where actually he does do it simultaneously
like
with
Q
Flash
got pressed.
and with Talia laying down her shit. So it is kind of like, I'm not saying he didn't in. I'm just saying like it's not as bad, or it's not like, oh, this is just Velia like throwing the game. It's like it's unfortunate.
I just don't think there's ever a situation. Okay, and the more I'm looking at it, I actually think this is more and more just like actually like Velia's like fault, right? There's never a situation where with your two cores and those like positions, and with like the Alistar ult still up and everything like that, that you're
it's
ever
still
going to get
terrible.
done.
This is what I'm saying. This fight's garbage
Yeah.
anyway. Like I don't buy it. Like I know what Nymaera laid out a rather beautiful pixel perfect like chain of events if enemy players don't press their buttons. But I think if enemy players do press their buttons, this is like, even if you do it pixel perfectly, still
but by the way,
losing.
folks, I want to make this very clear. Velia is still making a bad engage. Like, this is still a bad engage. It's just kind of funny to me, like, how bad it looks because there's some stuff outside of his control. Realistically, you need to wait a second until you press the engage there. And there's arguably an even better thing to say. Okay, you wait until the Talia rocks come down because teleport's coming in. You flash to the side of them, then you EQ, and then you do your same combo afterwards. It's a very high-risk play by Velia, which I really don't like.
Yeah, and it was not his only rough game, I think it's fair to say, in this opening week, which again, highlighting one of the things we talked about, which is hopefully, he gets more used to the LEC stage and the level of opposition and has some better games, but it does feel like, as you guys have outlined, that jungle is a tricky sticking point. I don't think it's the only sticking point for Los Ratones at the moment. But yeah, what, guys, is the path to, let's say, the path to improvement here for LR? Like, what would you like to? You said, Keire, you'd like to see maybe Engage go to a different role. As far as this team's concerned, what do you think is the path to progress for this team
I've
without
covered it.
changing
Like,
players?
yeah. Like, I cover. But like, you know what I mean? Get like the bouse onto like stuff that he's like comfortable on, that he wants to be playing. I'd be letting him play as many games AP Jacks, Crit Vi, all that malarkey as much as I possibly could. I'd be telling like my ADC and my mid laner, because remember it's BO1, so you're gonna get, it's not, you don't need to prep like fearless draft. You can always basically get an engage ADC unless the person wants to trip ban it out. And even if they want to trip ban it out, you can play like different things like. And then Nemesis, I would have him start like practicing some more unconventional like picks like mid to allow to allow like the team, like Nemesis for me, just because he's arguably the most flexible player. I'd be like turning to him, basically being like, I need you to like glue this team together. Like if I like, I'm going to say something crazy here, but it's a theoretical. If I need an Ornn mid, okay, I need Nemesis to be able to play the Ornn mid. I'm not having Bouse play the. You get what I mean? I'm going to just have Nemesis play the Ornn. You know what I mean? That's the type of thing. If I need like Rumble, right? Nemesis is playing the Rumble, right? Okay, and I know like the mid lane meta right now with the Tilia and the Azir and stuff like that, like it's maybe not as free a landscape as I'm making it out to be. But if you're the team and you want wins, I think that's the way of like trying to get wins. I don't think continuing down this path will result and as many regular wins as you think.
Yeah. Right, let's move on to a team who's maybe done a bit better than we expected, but who are also nearer our collective and individual bottoms of our barrels, which is Na'Vi.
Yep.
Now, they actually could have 3-0'd this week if things had gone a little bit different. So I guess, Nymaera, what's maybe surprising you, or maybe what's different than what your initial expectations were? Again, obviously it's BO1s, it doesn't mean anything, it doesn't mean this is a good team, but they've started well. So what are your thoughts on Na'Vi?
Well, obviously, the specter of the great evil of Rogue has finally been dispelled. That helps. You know, the last vestiges of Rogue management is gone from them, which I'm sure helps to some degree. You know, the great, you know, that one like meme of that, like that I can't remember. There's like that one Japanese screenshot, like the great evil has been defeated. Feels like that to a certain extent. The two players which really impressed me were Rilech and Samdi. Those two did way better than I thought they would. A lot of our talk about Na'Vi before this was, look, it felt like a team which wouldn't have a person who was really being the source of bravado, the source of leadership, and the person who is really taking the game by the reins. Because typically, new players coming to LEC, if they do that, or even if they do that, do quite poorly at it. It's a bit more hit and miss. I think this jungle has been fucking great. I think that Rillich has been really good. You know, bringing out stuff like the Kiana, which, let's be honest, mechanical junglers haven't necessarily been well, they've never been LEC specialty. Like, I mean, maybe you go back long enough and we've had a couple of okay Lee Sins, but realistically, we've never really wanted to see mechanical junglers coming out of the grand majority of our junglers in EU. Rillich pulled out like Ambessa and Kiana, which are both really strong on the patch and played very upfront, very aggressive. And it was helped by the fact that actually Samdi and Paris did much better in lane than I thought they would too. And that particularly Samdi, like in the loss versus Fnatic, the Varus was still like super good at points too in that early game. It really only just fell apart at the end. So those two massively outperforming gave them a platform to, well, one, a platform for Rillich to do his thing. But then also gave them like a carry that was pretty much online too. This is also helped by the fact that I think that they were, I don't know if I've really thought through in my head who the best drafting team in LEC was in week one, because drafting was quite garbage across the board. But I feel like they had a way better understanding of bot lane meta, where I hate Corki priority in LEC.
Oh yeah, it's fucking
Corki
sucks.
Particularly when they think that it can be used to answer Yunara. This will probably be a separate point, but it does apply to Na'Vi because they actually had the better of this, folks. Folks, Yunara came back after the nerfs midway through summer last year as a Corki answer because you could actually beat Corki at level 1. She was the one champion at that point who was beating Corki at level 1. So that's how she came back. And now suddenly people are like, but if we let the Yunara through, what if we went Corki? That's a good matchup without just having a second thought about that. Occasionally Corki can get some early lane push, but realistically, as long as the supports are at parity and it's not like a melee into a range support or something like that, which has happened or whatever, you're pretty much always going to be losing the push in the 1v in the 2v2. And in some cases too, even if you do get that push, the bounce back happens, and then as soon as Yunara gets her first back and gets like a recurve bow or even just a cull, you're like, well, I can't fight. She has too many points in queue. This becomes kind of an unplayable matchup. And what we've seen players like Super do on MKOI and a bunch of others is just get to 2 items, which are very cheap, because Kraken Slayer is not very expensive, and then Fiend Hunter Bolts is also not very expensive either. Just runs at you, auto attacks you 3 times for the increased damage, chunks you out for over half your HP, and then you're just off the map. Particularly because it's an item that also gives you ult haste, so it's kind of like a more AD carry centric hex plate, which was already built on some of these AD carries like Yunara anyway. So Yunara is just really fucking busted, and you shouldn't be using Corki to answer it. What you should be doing is answering it with pretty much one of 3 champions. Now, Keire's been talking about the Aphelios for a while, but particularly over Casper Cup and Demacia Cup, what teams realized was Aphelios can actually out-DPS Yunara in a way that no other AD carry can. So if Yunara dashes into range, he just stands and delivers. He just throws his just random wavy arm shit, and as long as he's got 2 vaguely competent weapons together, will probably out DPS the Yunara. The problem is he's immobile and Yunara is more mobile. That's the threat on the composition side of things. So if you don't want to do the DPS check, instead you go for Poke, Varus, or you go for Misfortune, because they stand at such a range and Yunara doesn't build sustain, so you can just blast her out of a team fight, just blast her out of an area. There was a really good game to show this. EDG versus Team WE in LPL. There was a game where Leave was playing the Yunara, got very far ahead, and then about hit 2 arrows in a team fight onto her, and she couldn't play the game, and pretty much EDG lost the game over the fact that the Yunara had no HP. This has happened in several other games too. That's just the one which came off the top of my head. There were particular late game fights where that matchup just completely ran it. If you look at the AD carry matchups throughout this week, they had Yunara into Corki. That's a win for them. They had the Poke Varus into the Corki. That's fantastic for them too. And then the first game before that, because I used to skip the other way, was another game of Yunara into Corki. So they had like 3 dominant bot lane matchups where they got the better side of it. And that allowed Relech a much better platform to perform the game. So I think the drafts are good. They've gotten a better read of the bot lane meta, and that's allowed Relech to play with a better platform to be really aggressive in the jungle. And that's been very, very impressive from them. They've actually played through that very well.
Yeah, Keire, what have you seen in Na'Vi? Starting to like this team?
No, I mean, I think there's just like, obviously I don't know like Mainter that well. I don't know Ralik that well, apart from like the games I see of them at like EU Masters. You know what I mean? Where I've seen Ralik like do numbers on Los Ratones, because he's the jungler that put them out in 3rd of the semi-finals. Yeah, it was.
Yep.
Yeah, it was. And then like Sam D, like Paris. Okay. Benefactors of BO1's League of Legends, teams who are generally worse. That is a universal rule. However, I think what's been really good for Pobe is his bad lanes, have picked like competent like matchups, and then because of that, even they're not like attempting to execute them at a very high level and then making mistakes. They're very stable, and so he's actually got for a bad team, he's got a more stable platform to play from than a traditional grouping of players of like this skill level. There was like sequences where like, Sam D was like 2v1ing the bot lane from like Fnatic because Lospa was making like such comedy of errors. You know what I mean? Like, and that you really just can't like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you're just catching that throw. Like the mistake that's been made, and this is what I kind of want to focus on. Of the people who have like came in, I would say, or the new starts, I would say Navi's like new starts have performed generally the best, and then everyone else's have been pretty fucking rotten, by the way. And I think that's pretty tough. Like, for example, we'll come to it later on, right? I understand it's going to be hyperbolic, but looking at these 3 games, they're BO1, so don't make. We have to assess something. So take everything with a pinch of salt. I'll say the caveat one last time. Mainter looks like a much better player than Imperios for what both teams want to do. And Mainter should just be on Fnatic for what Fnatic want to do instead of Imperios. In terms of what Fnatic want their top laner to be, they should just have Mainter, right? And
Incorrect, Keire, because Imperios's sole role is to be a friend to Vladdy. I'm pretty sure. It's my Korean theory, but I'm sticking with it for now. I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, we've already been over it. But what I'm saying is in terms of like Fnatic, a team that is much better than like Navi, theoretically, have ended up with arguably a much worse top laner. But yeah, like they're playing really stable. I like their conditions. The only thing, there's 2 things I really didn't like. I really didn't like the Akali pick for Pobe.
Oh, his last 3 fights of that last game were so tragic. He just got blown up in every single fight. It was really quite bad, actually.
Yeah, I really didn't like that from Pobe, and I really don't like the... Oh, what was the other game? 1 second, I had it up. 1 second.
Talia versus Vitality, Akali versus the last one, then he was playing Azir in the first game versus Seren.
1 second, picks. Oh yeah, I really didn't like the Alistair and the game versus Vitality, but it ended up working out okay. Yeah, I didn't like the Alistair in that game.
Huh.
I just think it's another like champion that kind of just goes into like the meat grinder that like I know because he's got his ultimate, like technically like he like wants to be inside the meat grinder and he can try and like disrupt it up, but I think like to me you want something else that like mothballs like slows down that thing. I really didn't like the Alistair. It's not that it was bad. They were like my only like big like concessions out of everyone. Actually, I'd probably say their like drafting was probably like some of the best. Beyond that, like I basically agreed with everything.
Well, actually, hang on. Well, let's have that conversation actually real quick because I was thinking it through in my head. Who do you think was the best drafting team in week 1? Because drafting looked pretty bad.
KC by miles.
was the best?
KC by miles. By miles and miles and miles. Like, KC by, like, fucking hedges. Because they literally just realised it's like, Aphelios Lulu. Like, bro, Bushi's not even playing well. Like, he's playing, like, badly. And he's, like...
But he's just picking the right champions.
Yeah, he's just picking the right champ. So it just looks like... He just looks like the smartest human being on the planet. Like, I even like the Caitlyn... Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's KC by, like, a margin that's not inconsiderable. Let me have a little look at the KC drafts. 1 second, just before I make sure I'm not talking completely out of my backside. So yeah, KC
like,
had Sion.
I have to say I didn't love the Caitlyn Karma. It was good in the laning phase, but then like eventually it gets unplayable versus Sion, Jarvan kind of stuff. But...
Yeah, but for that Caitlyn Karma game, I actually think here's the crazy thing. That was like one of those games where like to me, like the mis-execution of like that of that game, a lot of that came from like mid and like mid and like top, and then when on the grouping they got like that nice pick onto like Cliff in like the midsection where like they overextended and kind of like through the game. But like, you know, if you tell me I'm gonna get a game where I've got Xin Zhao plus an enchanter, you know what I mean? Like that's another thing. I think they need to pair those champions up even like more. Oh, that's the other pick I didn't like from KC. I didn't really like the Gnar. I think the Gnar was just like Kana. We have Kana on our team.
Well, I think I like that with nameplates on, just because it's like it's a solo kill champion in a side lane for top lane, which is kind of what you want against Baus. Because like if Baus does his typical kind of like over push to get pressure, maybe dying for it. If you can kill him really easily and actually snowball with his kills, especially with Kana being a really good snowball individual matchup player, then it makes a lot of sense. So I actually quite liked it with nameplates on. Even if nameplates off, I don't love Gnar in the meta right now.
So yeah, like all in all, like I think it's KC by like miles, but like yeah.
I actually think Na'Vi aren't too far behind. I quite like Na'Vi. I think their bot lane read was pretty good.
Yeah, mate, what do you call it? Navi's a happy accident. Go enjoy it, guys. Like go bang people in BO1s. You know what I mean? Make playoffs, play upset, enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously Na'Vi is a complete wait and see. Like, nice start. Let's see what they do going forward. Still wouldn't be surprised at all if they end up bottoming out and not even making playoffs. But, you know, not rooting for that. I'm just saying, who knows? Long way to go. Anyway.
By the way, it's objectively good for the league if they're good, by the way. Especially if the first split of not having Rogue. It's objectively good if they're good, and we hope for that.
let's talk about a team that's meant to be good, but didn't look particularly good, but also didn't really look like they cared that much, which was obviously G2. Um, I want to take a comment, first of all, before we talk about G2, that I believe Gilhotto said on Desk, or I could be wrong, where he
Right.
basically brought up the fact that it is LEC Versus and not real LEC, and that there was kind of a. He was obviously joking and being a bit lighthearted or whatever, but I do wonder at the start of this tournament during this BO1 phase, like how much G2 are really like taking this particularly seriously. And the other piece of sort of quasi evidence, I guess I'd use to bring this up, is there was also a double interview with Broken Blade and Skewmond where, I mean, they have a losing record and they were so nonchalant, it was unbelievable. Like, there's tongue in cheek, and then there's like, these guys just look like they played a scrim block and they're like, whatever, go next. Like, they were not remotely concerned at all. Now, again, you could read this in a myriad of different ways. I'm not pretending that I know what the answer is here, and that is why I guess I'm also posing the question. What Nymaera do you make of G2 first of all? But also, do you think there's anything to like they look like they are just pure coasting? Like, I know they threw the Giants game. I'm sure obviously that wasn't deliberate or whatever. Like, mistakes were made, but their attitude seemed to be, we're happy with where we are. We feel like the team is improving. Maybe not on stage, but these are their words. But yeah, things obviously haven't gone their way so far. So what do you make of G2 at the moment?
Some of the worst drafts out of the whole LEC cohort that really stuck out to me. You know, we were talking about how felt like Na'Vi got the better over the bot lane matchups in terms of that kind of thing. And I feel like they got some of the worst ones. You know, they had Corki Alistair versus Yunara Lulu. That is just a hard losing
That's
matchup.
a massacre. That's a fucking
That
massacre.
you basically can't play that. That's not a mechanical And by the way, in that game, they still managed to get like a flash Alistair Q into like the only alley-oop under tower. They actually played that mechanically quite well to get a kill out of that laning phase. I actually think that Skewmon and Labrov in that first game played pretty well as a duo. That was whatever. And then versus Giant X, they had the Yunara Rel into the Poke Varus Bards. You've got melee versus range support again, and then it's the Poke Varus, which is one of the better answers into the Yunara in general. And then finally, like in the last game, they ended up getting, you know, a more even matchup in like Ezreal into Corki, which is fine, and that's a bit more of a washed lane, even with the Bard versus the Nautilus. So I think that the first two games, the drafts were just unforgivable. And then by the way, I can't believe this in general. This is a overall LEC point again, but it applies to two of their games because in their win they got Jace jungle, and in one of the games which they lost versus MCoy, they played against the Jace jungle. Folks, I'm not kidding. Jace jungle is the strongest champion in League of Legends right now. That champion is fucking absurd. And I've done. It's really strong.
No, I'm
It
just
really
trying to think.
is.
It's definitely in the top echelons.
It's
It's,
okay.
it's really good, yeah.
It's
I'm trying
like
to think what if anything would rate higher than it.
the problem is there's a couple of things which get permabanned as well, but like
So, I know.
realistically,
I still think Sion's fucking crazy. Actually, I still think Sion's too crazy.
Sion
It's
is
close.
really
It's
crazy.
close. It's
Even
close.
then, I personally think Jace is stronger.
Ooh, fair. Yeah, okay.
At least either way, they're on a similar kind of echelon. But the thing about Jace jungle, and I've been through this talk already, but like we've now been through a couple of years of random Jace builds coming out. We had Flandre build up the tank Jace thing. In fact, this time last year on the LEC broadcast, I had my first, you know, Professor Nymaera segment explaining why tank Jace was the thing and why that was really broken. If I was on there this year, I'd be doing the same thing with why is Jace jungle a thing? One, there are actual individual Jace jungle buffs. But what this has exposed is a really dangerous thing if Jace is ever viable in jungle again. If this ever becomes a thing again, this will be why he is partially very broken. Jace in any laning matchup needs to itemize so he doesn't get solo killed, because Jace has a fuck ton of damage, but is very easy to shut down even when he's very fed. In fact, one of the reasons we don't really see top lane Jace anymore is because you just send one person to his lane, he dies, and then just things fall apart. Whenever Jace dies once or twice,
yeah,
he just dies. He just dies. And this has been time immemorial. In fact, one of the most famous games in World's history was the... Do you remember the Misfits tiebreaker game versus TSM? Max Law...
Honser. It was on... Bjergsen's on... Bjergsen's on...
Is that a Rise game from him? Or...
Rise. Honser's on... What do you call it? The Jace.
He's on the Jace, yeah.
On... Yeah.
And they have Scion on their team, and basically it's like, look, if Jace gets ahead and stays ahead, that's a problem. Max Law avoids enemy division in his first clear, gets a gank early, kills the Jace, and the game just is over. And that was happening back in season 7, folks. That was season 7, right? I think it was. Yeah, it would
that
have
was
been. 'Cause
season 7 Worlds, tiebreakers,
that's what got Misfits through to that quarterfinals against SKT in the 5-game series with the Leona Further Battle support. So Jace in lane is very, very vulnerable. It doesn't matter what the meta is, and that often means that he has to go away from building Glass Cannon. He needs like a Shojin or a Black Cleaver or an Eclipse, something that gives survivability. Jace has no such compunctions in jungle. Like, if you're in jungle, you just have to build damage. You are Glass Cannon, and that unlocks a Jace which has been somewhat away from the meta because it's just very easy to shut down in solo lanes. If you play Jace jungle, your clear is good, but then again, even if they nerf that, I think he'll still be played in this role now. Because if you get towards Ghostblade, the new item Sabotage, or Edge of Night, particularly if you're playing against Bard, if you have Edge of Night, it means he can't just randomly ult you as well. And then into Cyrildas or what have you into third, fourth item.
You can also swap your forms to get melee. No, but like you can. The Sabotage weapon has added damage based on if you're melee or range, so you can acceleration gate switch to melee, and you'll be a melee version of a shock blast rather than a range version. So you'll get full damage.
This is also why stuff like Grasp was very good on him in the tank build as well. He did exactly the same thing. Anything with a ranged melee switch component, he just switches to melee before the shot lands, and it still calculates it as a melee impact. So there's some side things like that which are really, really dangerous. But yeah, basically, if you get full Glass Cannon Jace, we saw against the G2 game, it is nigh unplayable for champions like Corki and Azir, which don't build that much sustain. It's honestly pretty shit for Alistar. In fact, the entire enemy team is just awful against that. I just don't think you can ever let Jace jungle through unless you are, one, picking Malphite into it, who can genuinely shrug that off and stand in front of every shock blast. You can't do shit against that. Fair enough, it's a Malphite into an ADC effectively, even though it's an artillery one. Or you're picking something like Nocturne Orianna and just perma-diving him. One of my favorite games from Demacia Cup, because we had blind pick game 3, which was really, really fun, was we had game 3s where everyone was picking Jace jungles. We'd have this artillery match of kind of Jaces and who was more accurate. It didn't even matter who was more fed. Because
C5.
Yeah, but things I really enjoyed that scene. Like, okay, well, this is actually gonna be really fun because, you know, does a Jace get ahead? Does it matter if they get ahead? Because if the other one is more accurate in mid game, does that change anything? But there was one excellent game. I can't remember which one, but you'll be able to tell from the draft anyway. It was a game 3 of a best of 3 where one team chose not to go Jace and they chose to go with the Nocturne Orianna instead and say, you can't play the game now. Because even if you build Edge of Night, Nocturnal will get rid of your Edge of Night shield, the spell shield, because you just don't get the vision denial at that point. That's what spell shield did, and you can go dive onto him. But unless you are actively trying to full counter the Jace jungle, do not let this shit go through. It's looked obscenely broken in every single game it's been played. I think the only game it lost was SK losing with it, which was very funny, by the way, because they literally got like four of I'd say the top 10 most broken champions on the patch, and they still lost that game, which is just beyond me. But yeah, in the G2 games, the fact that there is a game with them having Jace and then obviously going against it really raised an eyebrow for me too, to bring it back to them as a specific team. So the draft really doesn't help. That's one thing. And then the other thing is, I suppose we probably have to talk about Caps on an individual level. We're back to talking about Mercurial Caps. He just has shit games every now and then. And against JoJo, he got kind of blasted. So those are the two big things. Draft, Caps, inconsistency.
Yeah, I think the...
Yeah,
I was going to say, I think that just touching back on the draft thing, it has been an issue for G2 in general over the last however long. And they tend to like somewhat figure things out a little bit or get themselves together a little bit, but it has been sort of a less reliable thing to hang their hat on in the last, call it year, 18 months, which I do think is a bit of a worry going forward. Obviously, something we haven't really mentioned particularly, but because it's best of ones, obviously there's no Fearless, right? So that necessarily, but that necessarily isn't going to help G2 particularly. I do actually think G2 are now a team that kind of need time to figure out what they want to do with drafting, particularly when it comes to Fearless, as evidenced by basically the whole of last year. So that does actually worry me a little bit. Obviously, not a good week results wise, but I'm not really worried about, you know, them being involved in playoffs or something like that. I think G2 are a team that just need to be in the dance to ultimately have a very good chance of winning. I don't think seeding will matter particularly
But
necessarily for them too much. But yeah, no, I think this drafting thing is an issue now. I think it's reaching a point where you can say something that used to be a very big strength of G2 is now arguably a weakness, and I think that's kind of crazy to say. But yeah, sorry, go on, Keire.
by the way, just a wee like side note, I hate it. If you're like, oh, it's just fucking the start of LEC, more fool you. You're an idiot if you think like that. By the way, like you just don't have the time that other you are. I'm sorry, you just don't have the time that other teams do to get good. Like you're already behind Korea and China. So think about how much you need to be coming ahead. And this is what I hate about the players, right? Okay, I know it's their lives, and like you know, what I mean, I'm not dictating to them, but they come out with the plaudits of like, oh, I want these things. We're here to do X. You know, make an international final, win an international thing, and we accept that is what this G2's expectations is. It's like to do well and attempt to play upset at an international event and make a final and maybe try and win it. That is the point of this team. Is that am I mental? That is what we're here to do, right? Well, you're miles away from that, by the way. You are so fucking far away from that at this point in time. Like right now, like you know what I mean? It's comical how far away you are from that point in time, right? So like, I wouldn't be looking at this and being like, like so like hearted because you were already far away. You got blown out at Worlds like 3-0. Like this time period, you should be trying to get so far ahead. You know what I mean? That like going into first stand, we're kind of like, this team might be the team that overtakes the international G2 with like perks and caps on it. Like that's how we should be speaking about you, not like. Is Navi a better team than G2? Like, I'm joking. But, already, like, some concerns. It's like, you know what I mean, right? I'm gonna go on. Here's the problem with player expectations, right? Knight went into the league, okay? Went into the LCK, right? And he might be the best player, might be the best mid laner still in the LPL, okay? It hasn't stopped, right, okay? Vipers came over, he might be the best ADC. If he's not the best, he's maybe like second, right? Faker's like very, very good. Over in the LCK, BDD and Chove blew out BDD, like, you know what I mean, in the LCK, Chove might be the second best of the best mid laner, you know what I mean, Ruler might be the best of the second best ADC, okay? The really, really good players, they haven't stopped, right? Okay, has BB been the best player, and the best top player, a candidate for the best player in the LEC since he started the split?
Sorry, in this split?
No, like the three games, the first couple of games you've watched there.
The first couple of games I've watched, who's the best top laner in LEC?
It's not BB. Yeah, but it's not. Is BB anywhere near that like thing at all? Conversation?
He's been fine. I don't think many people have blown my socks off. It's probably Canna by a clear margin, and then like BB's like maybe top three, but no one.
Better, honestly.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
like,
it's basically Canna and then not. Yeah.
Yeah, but just go like through them. The only person you would say that's like probably held some sort of like static form is Skumon. Then even then, Skumon had that dodgy Zinjao game. So like, I just don't get it. If you want to be like, I know the player.
Oh, hang on. You know what? Rooster was actually pretty good. I like Rooster quite a lot, so he's actually probably above BB for me too.
So I know I've just picked out some of the best players of like all time, but by the way, these are the people you're expected to beat. So that's who I've got. That's who you've got. You know what I mean? These people who have literally not taken their foot off the gas, they are just still the best players in their region, the best players at their role, and that's who you're going to beat. And for me, you've taken a step back. You know what I mean? G2 look way worse in all of their dynamics than from when I last seen them. And it wasn't like, oh, game 1 was like a slip up, then game 2 was like a slip up. Even the game that they won, like, I like the draft a lot more, but. We did quite. It just doesn't.
I would push back a tiny bit because I think I agree with the overall point, which is like this split cannot be a we're taking this split off kind of thing or a half split off. Like you just can't do that. I do think just because obviously it is just week 1 and they played 3 BO1s, I'm kind of like a bit whatever. If we're having this conversation after week 2, I'm more like, okay, this is like silly. Like you guys do need to just be ramping up. I will give them half a pass for week 1 purely because it's just the first, like literally the first games that they played or whatever. Like I think if you have an off season and then you come on stage, I am not going to judge that team going forward based on what I see in those games. If they're really good from the off, to me that's like cool, that's awesome, that's a bonus, but I'm not going to like cast aspersions on, you know, what this team is from week one. But I do agree with the general point that they cannot be taking any splits off. Like, the goal is, I think most people believe, I think us included, as represented by our, you know, power rankings or whatever, go watch that if you haven't, that G2 should be winning most likely multiple splits. I don't think currently, based on how the offseason went, we feel strongly enough about any other team that we're like, oh, those guys should be dominant domestically and, you know, be decent internationally. I don't think any teams, even though I quite like some of the off-season moves that different teams have made, no one's in that bracket yet, or shown themselves to be in that bracket
Yeah,
yet.
I hear, but they
G2
also
should be
know the teams that stay
G2
together.
should be better than everyone else in the region to a greater
Yes.
degree this year than last year, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
because they've actually kept things together. No, I
yeah.
agree, and this
Yeah.
is actually the same reason why I'm critical of anyone's legend in LPL right now. I've had a very slow start. Like, if you've kept a team together, you should have a better floor than the other teams coming into the split. I understand best of ones. I understand shitty meta reads. By the way, I think this is not the first time. It's really, really disappointing to me that every time we come into a new season, Europe seems really behind the meta, despite this year particularly. Like, I, as an analyst, could quite easily see what had happened in terms of meta evolution beyond Worlds into those off-season tournaments, where we saw, okay, Yunara and Orianna are the best mid lane and the best AD carry. So then we saw Aphelios and Syndra into those matchups, and then we saw Malphite come out because not only because of its buffs, because it's good into all of those champions above. Then we saw Silas come on top of that too. Like, I can understand logically why those champions were picked in the place they were, and we come into the fucking split, we're letting Jace go through the pick and ban phase, we're letting Corki be played into Yunara and get absolutely blasted. To me, that is an unacceptable level of meta
I wonder
prep.
what does the prep look like?
Mate,
I would love to.
I've actually messaged a couple of coaches to figure out what the hell's going on, because scrim meta must have been just something wild for it. But you look at the pro scene elsewhere in the world, in LCK, LPL, which have actually had fairly competitive games already, way before LEC has started. You know, between the two off-season championships that we're talking about, and then the first week of play. It's just beyond me how you can come into the first games of play and just have that bad a meta read. You know, what the hell's been happening in practice? Surely we can be better than this. This is not the first time this has happened.
Yeah.
It's just the no, the hunger. I'm not trying to get like too like dramatic about it, Richard. You know what I mean? But like, it's very frustrating to me when like teams declare certain aspirations, and then the things that you see are not anathema, but are anti to those like aspirations, and then you don't see any like course correction, right? Like continued like course correction of the thing. By the way, we can basically pretend that like G2 are 2-1. By the way, like the base fucking ending
sure.
versus like GX is like a whatever burger, right? They basically just made a bad end game decision and got blown out. By the way, this happens to every team. It happens all the time. Basically every group of 5 players, if you play long enough, you will have a game where you misjudge an end and you'll get blown out. But I'm talking about the actual like A to B, you know what I mean, off the game. Like what what Hansam and Labrov are doing together, what Labrov's doing for Skumons, what Skumon's doing for BB, what BB's doing for Caps, you know what I mean? Like setups, dragons, understanding of like champions. Like, okay, we've got this Corki, it's bad into this Yunara, it's bad into this other champion. What are we going to do with these game conditions, right? Okay, with our draft, even though it has problems, right? To attempt to win the game. Oh no, we're going to just collide heads like a fucking 2 trains going into each other. It's like,
I'll tell you what's
what?
weird as well about like speculating what the scrim meta could look like, or why we're seeing perhaps some weak drafting from certain teams or whatever, is LCK and LPL started before LEC this year. So
Yeah.
what, are we not watching League, or like what's happening here? By the way,
Maybe
I'm someone
ignored it.
historically, I think that the West has too much tried to borrow certain concepts from the East just because they assume, well, they're the best team, so we should just completely like sheep into these same concepts. And I'm glad that, you know, we're not beholden to that as much as a general idea, but you know, come on, guys. Like, if you're seeing things that are absolutely popping off in the East, you're allowed to try them. That's all I'm saying. Maybe we are, and they're just so bad in scrims that, like, fuck, we need our own meta. But I doubt that. I think that it does seem like EU right now, and to a certain extent, this happens with every region, right? But we're carving out a meta, yes, but it's not a good one. And there are plenty of good things we could be borrowing from, you know, what, as you said, it's not even just from this season. It's like you could see where the stars were aligning at the end of last season, barring any extreme changes to certain champions that just aren't particularly being, I don't know. Like, to me, it's very odd
You're turning
Watching
down free wins, you
LCK,
know.
yeah,
You're just turning down free wins. Come on,
yeah,
like. Maybe it's not working out in scrims and you're just going through the herd mentality, but surely there's like, surely we can do better than this, you know? Yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
it's my rant over on that draft stuff.
Anyway, moving on to the final team we're going to talk about today. Now, again, guys, there's 12 teams currently in LEC, or sorry, LEC Versus. So every week, you know, we're not necessarily going to dedicate entire topics to every team because that would be absurd. But we will obviously try and keep it balanced. Like, we're not talking about shifters this week. If they have another better than expected week, let's call it, then we're definitely going to talk about them next week. I also just think that, you know, sometimes things are a narrative now, like LR03. If they're 2-4 next week, then I will have been glad that we talked about them and what they can improve this week rather than talking about them sort of maybe reaching their par next week. Like, you know, so it comes in waves, is the point. But we are going to talk about Fnatic. Because, you know, like most teams, they're a mixed bag. But the reason I want to talk about Fnatic is because they also have new players, obviously, which they're trying to embed. Small sample size, of course, so we can't come to too drastic conclusions. So, you know, temper your thoughts, Keire. But, you know, I've seen some things. Let's put it that way. I've seen some things. So we should probably talk about them. And I want to start there with the new boys. Keire, give me your thoughts on Fnatic's new additions and how they're embedding.
I'm okay. Again, back to personnel. Okay, so we want this really safe, dominant lane hero that can resist, allows for draft flexibility. Got a really powerful like global ult. Imperials is playing Rumble. I think he played 2 games and 1 of Rumble. Why is Imperials not just playing GP?
Which
I
is,
don't
by
get
the way, for those of you that don't know, his name literally used to be Jax Plank. He literally used to be called Jax Plank.
He's maybe one of the best, maybe top 4, top 5 GPs in solo queue in Europe, and he could be one of the best competitive GPs in Europe, right? Why is he not just playing GP? I just don't
He
get
played
it.
1 game of Ambassador, 1 game of Renekton, and 1 game of Rumble.
I was 1-1-1. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm misremembering.
I'll tell you why, Keire. It's because he needs to play Rumble to, you know, not use Flash defensively and die, and then TP back to lane, and then not use Flash offensively to secure the kill. That's why, obviously.
By the way, GP, very, very good champ, massively bonus from the items. He loves the extra levels. And that guy's a good GP player. Vladdy's just bad form, or just heart rate Vladdy just continues. Would you call it basically Vladdy of spring just continued. He's not as bad as Vladdy of summer, but it's like Vladdy of spring just came around. And again, that's why I hate when people just give the crown when it's not really actually earned. Basically Vladdy winning and I was somebody who was high on Vladdy. You can go back and watch the old episodes. Vladdy winning winter was basically just a massive upward thing, peak on the graph. But people forget it was there was bad games mixed in with the good. It was a blowout final that really recency biased people's heads. Lost Buzz fucking trash, but what can you do? He's just really really bad. Mate, diagnosing how bad he is just impossible. It's just don't stand there, you can't stand there. You also can't be there. That engage was terrible. Why are you standing there?
Do you have any moments you can think of in particular?
Yeah, bot lane where Sam D just starts 2v1 and then Upset has to burn his flash under turret.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Okay, so the 2 best players by far are Razork and Upset.
No surprise.
Razork's looks way better than what I actually seen in summer. I think Razork's look pretty good. He's still not the Zenith peak Razork that they've seen in the Noah humanoid lineup. It's not God Razork, but he's very very good. And I mean, I think Upset's. He might have actually lost all the games. Upset's been one of the best ADCs. Mate, his team's doing some categorical A inting, and he's playing very well. He's not he has his laning and stuff isn't great. The context of his support, but there's things going on in those games, mate, that I'd be pulling my hair out, mate, and he's still getting over the line. I don't know. I think he's been very, very, very good in the first couple of weeks. I think it's been a very good and a bit more what does that tell you where this team's going to go? You know what I mean? It's so depressing.
I mean, Greek tragedy Upset arc has never ended. It just continues to go. So yeah, Nymaera, what are your initial thoughts on this Fnatic lineup. I do get Fnatic is such a funny team when it comes to, because as you said, I was just thinking that I was like, Razork and Upset are the best players, but that's kind of sad in a way, because when they're like stripping parts out of this team and putting new parts in this team or whatever, it feels like a cancer patient who's had like 15 different operations on him, but there's like, fuck man, we did another biopsy and there's still malignant cells. Like, we just can't get rid of the cancer. And obviously, you know, they're 2-1. It's not like season over, time to panic, whatever. But it feels like this team is just perpetually plagued with nonsense. And it doesn't matter if you get rid of Humanoid. It doesn't matter if you, you know, change your top laner for Oscoronin because he's fallen off a cliff. It doesn't, like, they just still have, they find a way to be underwhelming. But yeah, Nymaera, what are your thoughts on this?
First off, I did find that one clip. I just want to play this through just so people can understand what was happening in the bot lane 1v2, by the way. There's not much to analyze. It's basically just like basically Losper puts zero pressure down on Samdi, walks backwards menacingly, has to blow exhaust. And then Upset's like, oh god, my support's gonna die. So then he has to walk up, and then he ends up getting his flash blown as well. Like, I don't think I've seen a Fnatic bot lane play that badly in a little while for a laning phase scenario. Well, I don't know. Mickey had some pretty bad stinkers as well, but you just sat there like, okay, come on, guys, come on, you can do better than this.
And then he doesn't go far enough back to reset properly, and even though he sees the Rakan on the
yeah, like I have to say, I didn't walk out of this week feeling like Losper was like awful, but that's because I thought he was largely unremarkable, and I was kind of watching things on the side, and I was more interested in what Razork was doing because now, from the sounds of it, it seemed like with all of the talk which Grabs had about the offseason, it was about adding players onto this team which would fruitfully engage in conversation, I suppose. That's the polite way to put it. Basically having people who weren't quiet and were actually presenting their ideas to the game, and that's apparently something which Vladdy does. I don't know
maybe
how...
do that less.
Yeah. Well, it's a weird thing, right? Because you need to have people that actually add into the...
By the way, how do we follow the logical train of we're essentially there's this crazy triangle of mid laners, and I don't think people have actually put these dots together, by the way. So Shayak, in comments that were made publicly by someone at Vitality, it was basically implied that he wasn't like massively hardworking. I can't remember what the exact wording was, but that he wasn't like, you know, massively hardworking or something. He gets replaced by Humanoid, who was literally kicked for not being massively hardworking, supposedly.
Is that the logic?
And then we've got Vladdy, who was a problem child, I guess would be an unspecific way to sort of describe it, is now essentially replacing Humanoid long term. Obviously, Polby came in, but then left. So it's like, what are we doing? Like, what is going on here? Like, what is the logic? And I saw a really interesting thing they actually were doing on Sky Sports, where they were talking about who they wanted to be the next Manchester United manager. And they're like, we're going to pretend to be a panel of people who have the decision-making power of who's going to be the next manager. And the way the host framed it was like really how most people, I think, would just frame one of these conversations typically. And they had like Jamie Carragher and like Thierry Henry or whatever on the panel. And he asked Thierry Henry, like, so based on this criteria and what we see as their DNA and blah, 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 who would you have as a manager? And he was sort of like, well, you guys are talking about like they need a winner and they need this and they need that. But it's like, we actually have no idea what their vision is. Like, you have to reverse engineer, not who is the best mid laner in the region. You have to reverse engineer what do you actually want specifically for this position and what do you want from this position, and then pick based on that, not going off like name value or whatever. And it seems very clear to me that these teams are simply not doing that because they're literally kicking players who are giving them red flags, and then they're hiring players who are giving them like very similar red flags to replace them. So to me, it's like an indictment on, you know, the league in general. But yeah, sorry, finish your...
No, and I think, look, I don't mind Emperos, but also like I don't think he's gonna fix this team. I mean, is this just a question of people not being available for the team, or did certain deals fall through and they couldn't get other players? I mean, Vladdy obviously had a really good start to last year. The guy has been, you know, he's gained a lot of reputation for that winter, the first end, and then coming back towards and the bits of spring which he looked a lot better for, and then And obviously towards the end of that, he started falling off. And so basically had like half a year of actual like, wow, this guy might be the best. Well, at least a third of the year where we thought maybe this guy might be the best mid in the league. Maybe around that.
Yeah.
So I understand like if you want to try and rekindle that, but you're absolutely right. You know, if the logic which has been presented to us, and again, we may not have the full picture and we only have certain snippets of interviews where it's about, well, we wanted someone who's vocal and kind of balances out Upset and Razork being the only people presenting their ideas of the game, and therefore it became a two-person kind of antagonism cycle where no one else was presenting ideas. Part of that is Europe doesn't have characterful vocal supports. You have people who are fairly quiet. We've talked about this before. Realistically, the only loud support we have in the region is Trimby. That's the only guy who actually speaks about the game. And, you know, he has his flaws too. Like, the guy speaks too much in game. He had to actually tone it back. But who do you have as support who actually actively saying stuff about the game as a support? Well, okay, you're not going to get that from that role. So then you have to get them elsewhere. I think that Emperos is... I actually don't know about Emperos as a person. But, like, if Vladdy's actually communicating about the game, then sure, then that helps. But I've yet to see that, I suppose. I just feel like this is just going to become another year of Razork Upset, trying to balance themselves out.
But again, Humanoid, supposedly, like, the narrative just seems to shift based on whatever the hell we
Humanoid
want.
was actually that opinionated bloke,
because
wasn't he?
Humanoid was literally, they used to say, actually, the secret shot caller on Mad Lions is Humanoid. It's Humanoid and Kazi are the masterminds of the macro, not Elyoya or whatever. Like, they were supposedly the vocal ones. But then when it's in the Fnatic thing, it's like, well, Upset.
Oh, that is true, by the way. Those were the two that were actually talking on that.
And we spoke about that in terms of being a potential positive, where we're like, well, this could be a headless chicken team, but actually, you know, they've got that core coordination, shot calling element of Humanoid and Kazi that won 2 LEC titles on Mad Lions with not amazing talent around them. So it just seems like teams are basically just switching between whatever the hell narrative suit them. And also, let's not forget that Fnatic very publicly tried to buy back Jun, which to me is ridiculous on like multiple levels. One, it's like, why the hell did you lose them in the first place? And two, it also shows that they announcing to the world that we didn't get our first choice. And then you start to wonder, did you get your second choice? Was this a legitimate backup plan? Was this a panic buy, quote unquote? Like, what was this? Like, who is this support player and why did you pick him? So to me, again, there's more questions and answers when it comes to Fnatic. And like with all these teams, time will of course tell. This is only week 1, like we'll see. But to me, this Fnatic looks like a team where you just imagine you hadn't heard any of the off-season rosters, and then you just see the team on day 1. You'd be like, okay, that's a bunch of unexpected stuff. And to me, I have not been instilled with the confidence to think, well, you know, it's Pep Guardiola. I'm sure it was meticulously put together. It's like, I don't think they have the track record to trust them.
I don't trust Fnatic until they make it work in playoffs, because it doesn't matter how good they look, they got to make it work in playoffs. I think this team is going to have to really try hard to make it to a good seeding in playoffs. You know, funnily enough, there were a couple of comments on the last episode like, oh man, you rated like Fnatic, like Vitality, Fnatic, blah, 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 what's on with that. I actually think both of them are really untrustworthy together. It's just like, who's going to be better than them? Maybe there'll be a surprise team above them. My worry is that if they have to try and figure things out this early into the split with like a player like Losby, who I think he'll probably end up being fine. I haven't seen much from him that's much inspired in any of these 3 games, really. And the same thing from Emperos, who I think is like, he's been fine. I don't think he's been special. I wonder whether that will eventually reach a boiling point where Razork and Upset realize they're going into another year where it's not really going to be fantastic for them. They bombed out of Worlds together last year too. I think this team's going to implode in playoffs again. Like, there's nothing. I think the pressure's going to be really on them internally. I don't see what balances out things, and we might see another Fnatic year where they have to make changes mid-year because they've not balanced the personalities or the communication goals of the team.
Yeah, and by the way, maybe this is like a harsh take, I suppose, but I actually don't think it, because, you know, people can talk about like consistency of a performance, be like, oh, yeah, okay, they haven't got over the line in the last how many years, but they're always there or thereabouts. And to me, it's not actually very impressive at all to be there or thereabouts in Europe, because basically, if you're the brand Fnatic, if you have the draw, the history, the prestige to some extent the spending power, though I understand that's obviously not, a massive edge they hold over like a lot of teams now. It's not impressive to just be in playoffs every year and then underwhelm in a series that you hope would like make your season like repeatedly. Like that isn't actually impressive at all. Like you are not doing a better job because you've managed to be in playoffs, let's just say 10 consecutive splits or whatever it is, and let's say, I don't know, Giant X or whoever haven't. That's not more impressive, by the way. It's much harder to make like 6 or 7 of those splits out of 10 splits being a much less valued from the outside brand than it is in Fnatic, and always having a long-term piece under a long contract like Razork or an upset or something like that. This isn't actually impressive. So they, as you said, the only thing that matters for Fnatic is playoffs. Don't even talk to me about maybe not making playoffs or something like that. That shouldn't even be in the thinking space. It should be, what can we actually do to make a final, to be competitive in a final, or to hopefully actually win one of these bloody splits. So yeah, that is the metric by which they should be judged, and anything else is just nonsense, I think, at this point. So yeah, I don't think they've earned the trust for us to assume that this is going to be a good project or a smartly put together project. I also think something that we've always touched on this show in the last, well, since Grabs has been there, basically, that it's really cool how transparent they are about certain things that are going on in the org, but also this level of transparency has highlighted a bunch of
That's a Grabs problem,
yeah.
though. It's great when things are actually
yeah.
if things are actually good, then the transparency is like if you're a top team and you're being transparent about it. Obviously, it's great for the content, whatever. Now, if you're a team that's meant to be a top team and you're not, then like all it does is just end up it's lighting more fires. Like sometimes you have to sort the shit out and then retroactively say, "Oh, this is what happened. We worked through it." Like doing it at certain points in the split, like off season or whatever. Like I just feel like that doesn't help.
And there's so many own goals that they've been scoring as well through this transparency. Like just so many like self-reports that you're just sat there like, hang on, but you said this, and now this is happening, and now you're saying things will be better when you bring the performance coach, but now you're still saying that players aren't trying. It's like it's a mess. Let's be real. It's a mess. Yeah, go on.
Can I just say, I actually think like the more into like esports, Fnatic looks like one of those teams to me where it's like they want like do you know the same way Karn? You know, remember Karn, who's the CS guy?
He was in
charge of like, yeah, he's still there, but he was part of the CS division. And I'm pretty sure like Karn, I might be mistaken on this, but the idea is like Fnatic had Karn in the CS division, and he made the CS choices, and they had a guy that they could trust, right, who made decisions around the CS team, okay, and it worked for them for a long time. Fnatic in CS right now might still be the second, maybe even the first greatest CS org of all time. If you include all versions of CS, would you call it? Maybe if they're not, there's easily top 3 or top 4, right?
Yeah.
Okay, they're like it's like them, Navi, and then like Astralis, and then maybe like some other fucking mixture of them, right? Okay. What's crazy to me is like to me, Navi need this in League of Legends. They've got a shit out. It just looks like an absolute shit show. Like they need a guy that they can trust to make decisions that's got a pull, because what happens is, and I think they need to like maybe throw a bit of money at it, because one of the funny things that can happen in esports is by not spending money and not looking after your reputation, it actually causes you to be more expensive long term. Like you like, for example, people would take less salary on TSM to play with Doublelift and Bjergsen. So even though Doublelift and Bjergsen were expensive players, TSM were like somewhat like saving money because people actually wanted to actively be on those like teams. You know what I mean? Like they wouldn't take as like good salaries because they want to actively like be there. I know they went on to pay Swordheart 6 million, but what can you do about that? People don't think about. I don't think people think about Fnatic the same way as they used to. I don't think people see Fnatic and think that's one of the 2
top teams.
Premier.
I think the last time we saw that was really 22. I think by 23 it started to like really fall apart. 22 was the last year I think that
it's completely
really
self-inflicted. Like I can just tell you,
self-inflicted.
Yeah, I can tell you this as well, just from the perspective of obviously someone who's been an agent and talking to Fnatic over the last however long. I was always baffled every single off season for a really long time. Whenever I talk to Fnatic, I'm like, why am I talking to Dardo? And by the way, I'll just say this. I worked with Dardo very closely at H2K. He was literally worked at H2K for a period of time. Dardo is a really smart guy. I know that people in the scene or whatever are like, haha, hashtag Dard out. Dardo is a really fucking smart guy, by the way. Like, compared to most people in esports, this guy is super smart. He has a good skill set, etc. This guy should be nowhere near making teams. Reason being, he doesn't know anything about League. Like, from an in-game perspective or whatever, when this guy joined H2K, and obviously you can learn things in time, etc., whatever, he had never played a game of League in his life, to my understanding.
Wow, okay.
He was playing, like, bronze Ash games and stuff, like, in his spare time, like, to try and, like, learn the game somewhat. And again, yes, of course, you can learn the game. So maybe this is, like, a slightly outdated take. But this guy never, to me, as far as I know, had the... like he should just never have been put in this position. He has a really strong skill set, and if someone said, hey, I've got this org and Dardo's involved and he's on whatever, the marketing side, or he's talking to investors or whatever, I'd be like, cool, great, super smart guy, awesome. But I just don't understand why he is literally like the poster child for the whole trust the process meme and like bringing play. Like that's actually, if you know this guy and know what he's really good at and what he doesn't know so much about, that's so crazy. Yeah. It's insane. And then you've got Sam Matthews, who's obviously been the mainstay of Fnatic since day one, is just propped up next to him during live streams, like asking questions. It's like, why do I, from purely, again, just the context of like team building and in-depth sort of League of Legends knowledge, have Tweedledum and Tweedledee being the two people who are asking these fan questions about like really in-game specific shit? That's mental. That is absolutely mental. Sam, as far as I know, and this is obviously just, you know, my take, he just doesn't have any skills in anything. Like, this guy is just a first mover. Like, he is an ontological argument. Like, that's who Sam Matthews is. He is literally the first mover. And he did a good job at capitalizing on esports when it was literally like nothing. It was a speck in the ocean. And he somewhat snowballed that. I don't know how, because the guy is a complete pea-brain. But whatever. Dardo is actually a very talented individual. But a really stupid individual put a really talented guy in completely the wrong position to succeed, right? And it was never going to work. It was never going to work. And as I said, yeah, they've always been relevant and they've always been in and around playoffs. So you can say, oh, but kind of done that badly. No, they had such a head. Thorin always puts this really well. Fnatic were like lapping the field in early League of Legends in EU. They had an astronomical lead, and they have managed to slowly and meticulously bottle that lead and unlap themselves, and now they're behind the 2 or 3 orgs that are above them. That's crazy. That should never even have been possible, but they've managed to do that, not because they have really stupid people. Khan, by the way, has also been involved in the League project over the years in certain capacities. Another really smart, talented guy. But should he be involved in League? Probably not. I would imagine probably not. It's not really his wheelhouse. So you've got, it's not just that, oh, you don't have the resources or whatever. You have really talented people. They're just being completely misallocated. So yeah, I don't know. Like, Fnatic is a whole crapshoot of just utter nonsense at this point. And again, by the way, I'm talking about this like, oh my God, they've started the season and they're 0-6. It's week 1. They're 2-1. But it is BO1s. So we'll see how this develops.
They also just look terrible, and it's just how inspiring can this team be. This team's best prospect for me is like at Spike's 4th.
Yeah. No, I agree. Absolute best case.
And that requires a collapse from one of like 3 teams elsewhere too.
I feel good. I mean, well, we haven't talked about them this week, but obviously we will. Like, Koi look more promising. You know, we'll talk about KC as well, of course. Like, I feel pretty good about 5th at the moment.
Let me off the leash for Vitality.
Yeah, well, Vitality. Hey, but whatever. We'll talk about Vitality obviously as well. But yeah, that is actually going to be it for this week, guys. So as I said, we'll talk about the teams we didn't talk about probably next week. But until then, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.